sportsbook, casino and now live casino. Download the Bruce Betting app to see why for the Premier League, Bruce Betting are giving you more. With price boosts, live in-play betting, cash out and ACCA insurance. Make Bruce Betting your Premier League bookmaker. Bruce Betting. In store, online and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Go up the hill for Jack and Jill from the 7th to the 14th of October. The Jack and Jill Foundation provides funding and support to families of sick children for home nursing care. Join an organised hill walk or create your own with friends and family. Part of the Jack and Jill Awareness Week, October 7th to 14th. To register, visit jackandjill.ie.
Come in, Agent.
HQ, this is Agent Deirdre.
Go ahead.
Observations on human cleverness this week. The humans continue to iron their undergarments. An exhausting activity to which we can see no point whatsoever.
Nobody sees them.
However, they have been clever enough to switch to Energia, where they get Ireland's cheapest dual-fuel bundle.
Which is good, given their obsession with ironing underpants.
Very good, little humans. Save and save again with Energia.
Switch to energia.ie.
Based on average annual usage, discounted unit rates, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax. Prices September 24th, 2018 and subject to change. T's and C's and early termination fee apply. Estimated annual bill €1,534. Verification energia.ie/EAB.
Dad, can you help me with my homework?
Sure, son. Ask away.
Okay. Name me a famous revolutionary leader.
That's easy. That'd be Apple Green. You see, with Fuel Good, Apple Green were the first to deliver quality fuels that save you up to 4 cents a litre. 2 P's in Apple Green there, son.
Are you sure about this?
Positive, son. Savings of up to 4 cents a litre.
The revolution is Fuel Good from Apple Green, our most advanced fuel ever at no extra cost. Apple Green, low fuel prices, always.
It's autumn, which means it's time to change your wardrobe. It's time to visit Kildare Village, where there's hundreds of new arrivals every week. It's time to find that fabulous investment piece, something iconic from all your favourite designer brands, all with up to 60% off at Kildare Village. It's autumn. Take exit 13 off the M7 for your style, your way. New arrivals for autumn at Kildare Village, where there's something extraordinary every day.
Your tyres are the only point of contact between your car and the road. As the miles go by, the rubber thins and wears, distorts. It happens gradually. You'll only notice it if you check them. Or if one day you hit the brakes and there's nothing left. Worn tyres are a contributory factor in 14 road deaths in Ireland on average each year. When your tyres lose grip, you lose everything. Check them. A message from the Road Safety Authority.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
Now, you're very welcome back. We're reviewing the Sunday Papers. We're on Facebook Live, and you may be catching us in podcast, or you may just be listening on the good old-fashioned FM in your kitchen. Either way, you're all very welcome. We have with us a regular guest, Paul Rouse, UCD historian, insists on being called professor, but we're not going to do that for him today, and also author of Sport in Ireland, a History, and more recently your book on hurling, which I understand you were in here talking about last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was talking to Jar about it last week.
Great. And how's that going?
It's flying, thanks very much. Yeah, I'm delighted.
Great. Give it another plug now, by all means. What's the general aim or plan with the book?
It tells the story of the birth of modern hurling. It starts with the first ever All-Ireland hurling final the morning of the game, and the players, a row over expenses, other players in a pub in Burr waiting for the team to come, and the playing of that game. And it tells the story of the 5 years before it, and how we got to a position where hurling was on the margins of Irish life, seeping away as the modern sports of the British Empire pushed it to the margins, and how that story was reversed, and how the modern game was constructed and basically taken from history and squeezed into a modern playing field.
Oh, fantastic. Great. A row over expenses. At least we've put all that to bed. And
it's
got
all
to grips with all
plain
that.
sailing.
Yeah. And Timmy McCarthy, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be here.
Thanks for being here. Former captain of the Irish basketball team, and you'll all know his work as commentator. Boom shakalaka. Not many Irishmen can say that and get away with it, but you seem to pull it off somehow.
Yeah, it's one of my trademarks at the stage. I think I described it before as it just came out of my mouth one night when I was commentating, and I got into a very passionate moment, and boom shakalaka seemed appropriate at the point in time. And I've kept, things like downtown and coast to coast, the basketball things, they're part of the basketball genre, but boom shakalaka was my own invention.
Have you trademarked that yet?
And not yet. I haven't.
Money to be made in those things.
Money to be made in those things.
Well, you're very welcome. So I'll run through the back pages. Sunday Mirror Sport. Generally, Jose Mourinho is on the back pages everywhere. Manhunt, Under Fire Jose, My Stars Were Scared and Sad. the manhunt headline is going to appear everywhere because Mourinho claimed afterwards that there is, I've seen manhunting. He's talking about the likes of Scholes and Rio Ferdinand in particular. He says the former players of the club, there's a witch hunt going on and he's the man they're hunting. He says, I can cope with it, I can live with it. Some of the boys, in spite of them not being the man that is hunted, they're not used to it. So he says it's affecting some of the players. But that's Jose Mourinho in his post-match comments yesterday. So again, Sunday World here, it's a manhunt. Jose Mourinho came out fighting last night when he was pulled back from the brink. And again, he's talking about Scholes and Rio in particular. Sunday Independent going more so, well, with the rugby in terms of a picture. They have electrifying low brace earns Leinster Derby bragging rights. It was 30 points to 22 in the end. And then above, Mourinho slams his critics after United Escape Act. And then Colin Young here, we might touch on this if we get a chance. Rice's Ireland decision may hinge on new club contract. Obviously West Ham wanting to play for England. Again, back of the sun, it's Jose on the ground, smashing it in frustration. Jose fury at wicked attacks by United legends. Rio and Scholes hit back. You've got to take the flak. So, furious Jose Mourinho launched a blistering attack on Manchester United legends. He's accused them of orchestrating a wicked manhunt against him. And again, it's on the back page of the Star. And it's manhunt. United stars rally to save Mourinho as he hits out at bid to get him the sack. And then Sunday Times, it's Jose Mourinho. Again, Jose's fighting talk. I'm 55 years old. This is the first manhunt I've seen in football, which can't possibly be true. And then, if it rains in London, it's my fault. A bad Brexit deal is my fault, says Jose Mourinho. And the Mail on Sunday, Joey's Blues, that's Joey Carberry. Unhappy return for Carberry as Leinster remain dominant over Munster. And again, Mourinho slams critics for wickedness. So Mourinho's everywhere. I mean, touching him briefly, because I do want to get to the McGregor, Khabib stuff elsewhere. Obviously, it hasn't made the actual hard copy versions, but Mourinho's. Are you interested by this? Or
I'm very interested. I'm very interested because I'm a Chelsea fan, so I saw Mourinho in his early days in Chelsea. He was superb, I thought, at the time. I just think he's become a bitter old man at this stage. But I think there's a very good comment in the Sunday Times and then letter to the editor. It says if there's a crisis at Man U, it's time to bring in Sam Allardyce. So 29 million payoff with Jose and then bring in Sam. So things are looking up for Man United fans.
Yeah, it's funny outside. You were briefly harking back to Jose when he first arrived and was so splendid.
Yeah, he just looks different now, and it's not merely an aging thing. He doesn't look happy in himself in United. It's actually amusing that Jose Mourinho, who has routinely used the press to criticise other managers, to go after other people, should now be lamenting that he himself is a target. I find it extremely amusing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's preposterous.
You had a relative over in London?
I did. My auntie Kathleen used to live in Chelsea, and she said to me one Monday afternoon, "Come on, we'll go and see Mourinho." And Mourinho was sitting in a cafe in Sloane Square, looking resplendent in the kind of early autumn sun. The 3 or 4 buttons open in this £1,000 shirt as he laid in the traffic stop, and to watch him merely have a coffee, looking like he just owned Chelsea. Yeah. And of course, that's what he did. He just arrived and it was fresh and it was new. But he looks like a man who is now kind of crippled by his experiences, both positive and negative. He carries the weight of everything that he has both done and failed to do. The scars are there for all to see. And Oliver Holt has a line in the Mail today where he talks about Mourinho and how Man United yesterday managed to beat the only club more dysfunctional than them in the Premier League. And I think that about sums it up. It feels like a stay of execution rather than any dramatic sea change.
Yeah, I think their fixture list isn't too kind. They've got Juventus twice and Chelsea and all sorts of ugly things on the horizon. So, I mean, it's a stay of execution is very much the feeling, I think.
Yeah, and I think, I was a season ticket holder at Chelsea in those days, and it was phenomenal to watch him on the sideline. The first time I saw Mourinho actually was a year before that in Madeira Island, where Porto played Madeira. I didn't know this guy Mourinho, but I just thought he was classy on the sideline, classy how he controlled himself. And then at Chelsea, I saw him every 2 weeks, and he was phenomenal. In his first year with Duff and Robin and Drogba, that team, he was exceptional, and he was so much in control of his emotions. He was so much in control of his team, the backroom team. It just was all what I would love in sports coaching and management is he's the boss, he's in charge, and the team are playing for him in that sense.
Yeah.
And then I just felt as he went on and started on his travels to different teams, to Italy and to Spain, I saw him in the Champions League final when Italy won, and again he was, still at maybe the top of his career. but it's gone downhill very quickly. And even though United are probably one of the biggest clubs in the world, I think that he is a dead man walking. And even if it's not imminent, it's a timing issue, because they're not going to win the big prize under him, and that's his frustration, I think.
Speaking of control, we didn't see much of it in Las Vegas last night, so obviously one of the disadvantages of the hard copies in the papers is there's nothing about the big story of the weekend now, but we went online, you'll appreciate, given the magnitude of what went on, to see how it's been covered. So, New York Times here, Molloy at UFC 229 after Nurmagomedov chokes out McGregor. The Guardian, Nurmagomedov sorry for brawl and arrests after UFC win over McGregor. A Russian fighter attacked members of McGregor's camp. Mike Tyson calls ugly scenes unimaginable is the best line of the weekend. Molloy at UFC 229, Nurmagomedov chokes out McGregor. And then BBC Sport, another angle on things, McGregor loses to Khabib amid ugly scenes. So it's everywhere, it's all over the world, it's global news.
I think there's a great line actually in the BBC Sport. It's from the former UFC fighter Dan Hardy. And he makes the point that because of such a one-sided fight that seems to have got lost in the maze, that because Khabib didn't actually, expend all his energy, that's why he climbed over the fence. What he said was that as soon as he got back up, there was still fight left in him, and that's why he wanted to go for one of McGregor's men. So his view is that the fight was such a one-sided fight that this Khabib had plenty of energy and he wanted to fight somebody else.
Dana White's gone for the big cliche of all parents, really. I'm not even mad, I'm just really disappointed. I've been doing this for 18 years. I mean, it literally is like I've raised you for 18 years and you come home drunk like this. The biggest night ever, I couldn't be more disappointed. I wonder how disappointed he is.
He's not disappointed.
Do you not think so?
No, he's not disappointed.
He put on a good act, I must say.
He did. He is a tremendous showman who's made himself very rich from putting on this act. I don't think he's at all disappointed, and I think the most sensible line on, and here's a sentence I never thought I'd say, but the most sensible line on the whole thing came from former world heavyweight boxing champion Tyson Fury, who said, "It's show business as well as a fight. Think how big a rematch could be."
Yeah.
And already you can see it, that this will move in time towards a rematch. And I think what matters though in this as well, this isn't a game between Khabib and McGregor. There is no respect there. And I think in most sports, no matter how, even if there's really intense dislike or even hatred between competitors, there is at some level a measure of respect, and there appears to be none here. And the conduct of McGregor in the months leading up to the fight, his performances in the press conferences beforehand, I went back and looked at them this morning just to see where this comes from, and he goaded Khabib in a whole load of different ways. I'm not trying to say that justifies what Khabib did at the end of it, but it does begin to explain it.
Yeah.
And the relations between both sides. But when it comes down to it, when the talking was to be done in the ring, McGregor looked gassed in it. He didn't look as fit as you've seen him in the past, and he didn't look strong enough. He looked a little bit outclassed, if truth be told.
Yeah, it was his worst
I'll just
nightmare.
give a different view, Joe, on that though. I think that, first of all, I'm very disappointed McGregor lost, okay? I'm not a big fan of the sport, but he's an Irishman, he's fighting for a world title, so from an Irishman's point of view, I'm disappointed he lost the fight. And he was well beat, we've talked about. But they've built him up as this personality. So the UFC want McGregor to say the things he's doing. They want him to attack people in buses, in car parks in New York City. And you really can't control the tiger. Then if you let the tiger out of the room, you build up this tiger and let him out of the room, it's hard to control him. So I think that what we see in this, first of all, I wouldn't believe every single thing is said by either of these fighters, like many of the fighters in boxing or the sport, because it's a show. They're trying to sell seats. It's pay-per-view, it's promotion, it's entertainment. We call it sport because we love sport, but there is an entertainment aspect to this, and it has to get bums on seats in that sense. But I do believe that what we saw in McGregor, I mean, first of all, he had less press conferences for this fight than many of his other fights in that sense, which is a change. And he said things that we might see, and I would believe, are inappropriate. But in the world that they're involved in, that's what they're about. And and I think he's been scripted as well in certain things. I don't believe that everything that comes out of these fighters' mouths are not scripted. I think they've been told at times to say certain things.
I'll totally take that, and I wouldn't judge the man. I've never met the man. I wouldn't judge him from what he does in front of a camera. You can't look at that. but he doesn't look like a man who's in control. Someone who throws something through the window of a bus, who flies across the Atlantic to do that, who throws it through the window of a bus, is not somebody who's necessarily in control, number one. Number two, it's all very well saying the UFC make him do this, but he's not just a pawn. In many respects, he is the UFC. He's the one who drives the pay-per-view. I think he is extraordinary in the amount of money he has created for himself, how many people he has made rich around him. You can only admire him for that. So I wouldn't criticise him on that. But when it comes back down to the raw business of the ring, he was embittered tonight. The whole truth.
I'd agree with that one. I'd agree with that, but I'd also go back to the fact his last fight was against Mayweather in a boxing, exhibition. I suppose is the best thing. So I think that there's a question mark about has he still got it at the highest level in the sport, and from that point of view. But he's
kind of amazing he didn't have any warm-up fights or.
Yeah, I thought he might get it. Even if you look at the boxing sport, they put you in against a nobody and you win this, and you get your timing back. Get your timing back in that sense. He went straight in against the title holder in that sense, who was a hungry guy who wanted forget the taunts, but this guy wants to keep his crown. And because I watched the Dana White's press conference this morning, and I just thought it was fascinating because he was asked at one stage, was Khabib coming in, and he said, well, I'm not sure. And I said to myself, okay, I don't believe that. You run this thing. You know exactly what time he's coming in that sense. And it's a show. And I think once you lose sight of the fact that it's a show, you then get into the fact that, well, it's good, bad or indifferent. From my point of view, McGregor was well beat. He was well beat on the night, and it looks a long way back from now. We might, from a sports point of view, I'm not sure, is the pinnacle achievable again from in that sense, because, when he came on the scene, he was hungry, he was aggressive, and he did all things off the outside the ring. I think now he's doing an awful more stuff outside the ring, whiskey and a whole lot of other stuff in that sense. And is his focus as it once was,
Yeah. He was asked in the press conference, when are you going to be a billionaire? And he said, 5 years. And that's kind of his focus. He's never going to fight the 8 fights he's contracted to do. I think that ship has sailed, and last night confirmed that, didn't it? Daniel Cormier, by the way, who's a training partner of Khabib, said, 2 wrongs don't make a right. He's talking about the nature of the press conferences and the build-up to the fight and what McGregor was saying. He said, Conor didn't deserve it, no one did, but some things aren't for fight promotion. Religion, family, country, throwing stuff in Brooklyn. For Khabib, it wasn't fight promotion, it was really personal, different culture.
Oh, well, country, hold on now. Everybody knows that the first refuge of the boxer is to wrap themselves in the flag and to imagine that they're representing a country when they go out there and that they're fighting on behalf of that country.
Yeah.
That's what Dan Donnelly was at that 200 years ago when he was fighting in the Curragh against Englishmen.
Yeah.
These are things that everybody uses to put themselves. There's nothing new in that.
Yeah.
I think Khabib said, Joe, that Putin rang him after the fight. So
that's right, yeah.
So you can't be saying
he's very proud of him.
Yeah, so to tell me he's very proud. So you can't be saying that the country doesn't matter when you've the president of the country ringing you to say, well done, Khabib,
Yeah, so look, that's going to rumble on all week, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. 3 people arrested and then released. McGregor's not going to press charges is the other point to make. And it seems, Dana White was raising the distinct likelihood that Khabib will lose his title owing to a very long suspension. So again, we'll see how it all plays out. Sean Cox's wife has done an interview in the living section of the Sunday Independent with John Green. Sean Cox being the Liverpool fan who was fighting for his life after the Roma game. It's a 2-page spread, it's a big piece, and it's just horrific. It would make your blood boil what's happened to this family.
It's where do you start with this? It's first of all, it's a brilliant piece. It's a very, very brave interview, and it's well put together by John Green, and it's the detail. It's always the detail in these things, I think, that really get you. So he's in the Walton Centre in Liverpool. He's still in a coma, and they're keeping a kind of a patient's diary where they chronicle the day's events. They're writing in it, and there's a message from his son Jack. Hi Dad, it's my 21st birthday today. Myself, Mam and Richard, who's Sean's cousin, are going to Nando's for dinner. And of course Sean's just in the bed immobile. It talks then about Sean's home then to Dublin. He's in Beaumont Hospital. He'd been a mainstay of the GAA club in Dunboyne. He was a Dubliner living in Meath, as so many are, but utterly committed to Dunboyne GAA. And Dunboyne won the Meath Junior Championship, and Jack was on the team, and Sean wasn't there for it. They brought the cup into the hospital, and he was just about able to hold it, and so on. It's just these details of life moving on, and the repercussions and the impact of a single blow or blows on a side street, outside a pub, before a match.
I know. Do you know what? In the context of idiots knocking the head off each other outside the T-Mobile Arena last night in Las Vegas, this is a potential consequence, you know, because I'm sure you saw some of that stuff on Twitter. I know you're off Twitter now, but I mean, there was all sorts going on outside the venue last night. They should all be made read this piece. 3 children, Jack 21, Sean at 20, Emma 17. And the thing is, I mean, he's still in really, really poor health. He can sort of move his right hand to a touch and right leg a little bit, can't talk, can laugh, can understand what's going on. Can't move his left side at all because the blow came from the right hand side of the brain.
What I thought about it was that, two things. First of all, it was April the 24th, so it's a long time ago in many ways. But for me, what the piece summed up was the loneliness of the family, how lonely the family are without their dad and their husband in that sense. And then the loving care and attention that is so evident, you know, from the piece, from his wife Martina, right throughout in that sense. And the world has moved on and forgotten about Sean Cox. And, you know, it's like, you know, that it comes down to his family, his wife and children and other relatives in that sense. And she tells the story, you know, the fact, as you've just described, his difficulties, Joe, in that sense. But, you know, I think the last line is very, to me, we want Sean back as best we can. So we will do whatever we have to do to get him to the optimum level. Mm-hmm. She's accepting she won't get the same Sean back that went to that night in Liverpool, you know, against Roma back on April 24th. Yeah. But they'll do everything they can in their power. But she also has another very important line, I think, which is, you know, near the end of it, she says, you know, he's in Dún Laoghaire for 12 weeks, and but now you're on your own then. Dún Laoghaire is covered by the government, and after that it's private. So now, you know, the harsh realities of the world step in, you know, the emotion that, you know, was there at the time is now dwindling in that sense. And now you have a family whose loved one is in real trouble, and now financially there's huge pressure coming over the line.
There's a thing there, though, on that, isn't there? Isn't that the banner, that Sean Cox banner carried by players onto the pitch? You'll never walk alone. Now, what does that really mean when it comes down to it? Like, surely there must be a way for people who are not just Liverpool fans, but genuinely want to help here to contribute to this. I mean, when you read this interview, and like Martina, his wife, she just comes across as an exceptionally impressive woman who's there for her husband, really fighting for him. And it says Martina has become his voice in the thing, because she's trying to push things along for him, and that woman deserves every support, as the entire family do.
Yeah, so you get 12 weeks in Dún Laoghaire. That's what the state will provide when he comes back, and then you are on your own. They're hoping to raise, I think, a minimum of 2 million. There's talk of going to Germany. That seems to be the best place for rehabilitation. 2 million to a club like Liverpool? To Roma?
I would have a view that both clubs should give $1 million each, and you know it is. And then if there's other, you know, personal donations on top of that, but you know, it's very easy with respect to players to walk around the field with a banner. You'll never walk alone.
Exactly.
You know,
that's my point.
It's like players in a different context kissing the crest of a jersey, and then the next year they're playing for a different team and they kiss another crest. You know, so sometimes, you know, shows of emotion like that, you know, while they're important at that point in time for the Cox family, you know, the test always comes in the end. I mean, I've always said in sports and in business, you know, your courage is tested. Your courage is really tested, and Liverpool's courage now is tested in that, you know, this family need financial support, and you know, I would expect Liverpool and Roma to be the people who give them that support, to send him to Germany and give him the best. His wife's line: give him the optimum opportunity for the remainder of his life in that sense. And you know, whether it's £1 million each or whatever the split is, you know, they have a responsibility, and that's where courage is required. And I think that'll be interesting to see, you know, will he walk alone without the support of particularly Liverpool, the club he's supported?
Yeah, she says, it's very hard to paint a picture at this stage. I really don't know. Sean is at the very beginning of his journey. When you think about it, it's been 5.5 months, and for 1 month he was asleep. It's a very long, slow recovery. We really don't know what the outcome will be. Obviously, he's still not talking. That's a huge concern. We don't know how it's going to pan out. I don't know about his mobility. I just don't know.
But there's hope in it as well. Okay, so and the hope lies in the complexity of the brain, and it being the final frontier of medicine, and how little is known and how much things have changed. But the understanding that recovery can be up to 2 years. So there is space here. There is space for people to actually positively impact his life by doing the right thing by him.
I suspect the club will. I suspect Liverpool will. She said initially there was a contact with the liaison officer and they helped with some flights and logistics, and since then, very, very little. But now I think they're starting the fundraising campaign because he's got 12 weeks in Dunleary, and after that they're on their own. So I guess over the next 12 weeks, that's the chance where they'll go to the club and say, here's the story, would you like to do anything? I'd be really shocked if Liverpool didn't.
Liverpool would strike me as a club that, you know, I've been in a lot of grounds in England over the years, and what always fascinated me with Liverpool was it was a real family type club in that sense. You know, that was the thing I would have go to Manchester United is very corporate, go to Chelsea it's very corporate, but I always felt Liverpool was the working man's club, and it'll be interesting to see will they stand up. You know, I'd have reservations. I think that, you know, because they'd be worried about setting precedents, they'd be worried about the implications for other situations, about other people, you know, that have been injured or at their games. So they'll have that concern. But if they're really true to the fact the Cox family will never walk alone, they'll be tested over the next number of weeks financially, I believe.
They can find a way to do it that isn't precedent. They can find a way of doing it quietly. They don't need to make a big fuss about it, but they need to do the right thing. They need to put meaning on the words of their slogan.
The Ronaldo story, I was curious to see what the treatment of the Ronaldo situation would be. By far the biggest, most eye-catching piece on the back page of the Sunday Times. It's David Walsh. I've seen the Sunday Independent main section have a piece about it, and you know, it is very much a news story, and they talk about the endorsement situation. He's lost certain endorsements. He's been taken off the front of EA Sports. I suppose what David Walsh has done is really just put together a pretty comprehensive timeline of where we are in the story. As you can imagine, with our libel laws in this country and the UK, and with the sensitivity of the subject matter, it's not an editorial piece, it's very much factual. It's if you've missed what's been going on in some way, if you haven't read the full Der Spiegel 9,000-word interview with the alleged victim, then here's where we are. And I'm sure there's lots of people who've seen headlines and may read that piece today and suddenly realise just how serious this is for Ronaldo.
To me, this is David Walsh back to his best type of journalism, what he does really well, the sticking to facts and telling a story and building case on case. And again, as you say, it builds on that 9,000-word piece in Der Spiegel, which is widely available.
It's a must-read, that piece.
Yeah.
It's basically an interview with the alleged victim. A year ago, she certainly did not want to talk to anybody. And Catherine Mayorga, a year on, the Me Too movement, I think a year of looking at Ronaldo on billboards and thinking about the whole situation, she was more inclined to speak. So she's given a 9,000-word account effectively of what happened. And that's changed how everybody's talking about the case. You know, before it was just Der Spiegel who had the documents, the Football League's documents. The rest of us didn't. It was very tricky for anybody to talk about it in too much depth, but her coming forward the way she has changed things, and that's why this is blown up now so massively. What you say to you both from the Walsh piece?
I think we can't obviously read out, given the time of this show, we can't read out everything that's in it, but I think there's a line in it that really strikes, and I absolutely appreciate you have to be careful with context and not taking a particular line out of context, but David Walsh quotes from a document which Der Spiegel had found when Ronaldo was interviewed back in September 2009 about what happened in the bedroom. We'll skip one part of it, which is the first part of it. It's pretty graphic, but then he goes, he was also asked if the woman had raised her voice or screamed or called out. And he is quoted as saying, she said no and stop several times.
That's now, Ronaldo's quote.
That's Ronaldo's quote. Yeah. Now, if that is as is, then that's devastating.
Yeah. Der Spiegel reports that by December that statement had changed and it no longer contained those quotes from Ronaldo. But Der Spiegel say they have the original statement.
So there's space there in that on those 3 months the statement seems to have changed, and of course you can parse that and read it, and what we're focusing on here now is one very particular part of the whole story. It's set out in not in absolute detail by David Walsh, but very clearly in a particular way, and it builds on that Der Spiegel article, and it feels something particularly devastating here.
It's important to say Ronaldo's denied the allegations. He had an Instagram video which you may have seen on social media. Did either of you see this video?
No.
It was the most blasé thing I've ever seen. It was not appropriate for the allegations. I mean, he was lying back in a bed, head on a pillow, and sort of grinning, and it was as if he was refuting an accusation that he dived in the match the night before. You know, it was not in keeping with the seriousness of the allegations. But he said, no, what they said today, fake news. They want to promote my name. It's normal. They want to be famous to say my name, but it's part of the job. I'm a happy man. All good. Smile. Some of the sponsors, the sponsors are not rowing in strongly behind him. Nike and EA Sports and Save the Children. He's an ambassador for them. We are disheartened by the news report we've seen in the last 24 hours. We're working to get more information, which is where everybody is at the moment, information and process.
I didn't see him actually lying in the bed saying the words, but I actually did hear the words in that sense. And my first reaction was, when I read David Walsh's piece this morning, was it's a 10-year-old situation that David Walsh has brought back to life, which in really clear factual situation. And
well, in fairness, I hear what you're saying. Der Spiegel have done all the work,
but he, from the point of view of
his audience,
yeah, sure. in that sense, and. I thought Ronaldo's reaction to it was appalling. It's a serious allegation, and that's what it is. It's an allegation that happened 10 years ago. The sponsors are always going to be interesting because the sponsor will have more information than we will know. They'll have more information, so they're sitting on the fence a bit now. I thought Juventus' statement was silly. I just thought it was a silly statement.
For people who didn't see that, basically they referenced the fact that the events are 10 years old. What that has to do with much, I'm not sure. They do not change our opinion, and their opinion, they had said in a previous tweet, was that Ronaldo is a great champion and he's shown incredible professionalism. So they said the events date back almost 10 years. They don't change this opinion, which is shared by anyone who's come into contact with this great champion. That was their tweet.
Yeah, and it's because obviously, I think the day he signed, they sold some ridiculous amount of shirts the next day, so they probably have got his feedback in all the shirts they've bought. But I just thought it was the wrong thing for them to say. I thought that, this is a sensitive issue for both people involved. And we've got to understand there's two people. There's the lady and there's Ronaldo. So there's two people involved in this situation. And it's sensitive for both of them. If it's true, it's appalling. If it's untrue, it's equally as appalling. So we got to just be careful in the sense of that. It's an allegation. But what I liked about the way David Walsh put it was, from the Spiegel's situation is, he just brought it back to life, and he laid it out factually, as Paul made a point. Some of the words are very graphic at the end of it. But he also then went on to talk about some other challenges that the Portuguese star had, some other sex scandals in 2005 up to 2018. So he just put it in a question mark about Ronaldo. So the rest of it was all very factual, and then there was this little point about there's been some other question marks in that sense. And I just said to myself, that's interesting, because that could force readers to lean one way. I would just say, read the facts of the story and don't get distracted, and let the facts come out in
it's a fair point. Yeah. Any final thoughts on how?
I think the sponsors, it's almost grim to be talking about sponsors in this issue, but Nike they're reversing in the process. Like Nike signed a deal worth $1 billion to make him a lifetime athlete, and they're distancing themselves. EA Sports seem to have taken down the material around Ronaldo showing the side, and if I'm not mistaken, they've just released FIFA 19 with him on the front cover.
Getting him off the cover.
Yeah. So that's really important to, I think, the story and what people are, the amount of credence that people are bringing to it.
Yeah, okay. It's a difficult one to talk about live on air, and legally you have to be very, very careful, but it's certainly not going away in the way it did a year ago, that's for sure. We're here with Timmy McCarthy and Paul Rouse. We're taking a short break.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Coming up this week, we meet the tech company making smartphones for the elderly. We'll get hands-on with Doro's new devices, which have a large screen, buttons, and are easy to use. We'll also find out how An Post is moving with the times, and of course, answer your tech questions.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Thanks to Harvey Norman.
Download the podcast now or tune in this evening at the later time of 7.
On News Talk.
Come in, HQ. This is Field Agent Martin.
Go ahead, Agent Martin.
The humans have shown clever thinking by going directly to Energia, getting themselves 29% off electricity, 28% off gas, and €50 cashback. It's Ireland's cheapest dual fuel bundle.
That's a lot of numbers for their little brains.
They're calling 1850 300 700 or searching cheapest to get it.
Remarkable. The clever humans save and save again with Energia. Hit it. Switch to energia.ie.
Based on average annual usage, discount as unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax. Prices September 24th, 2018 and subject to change. T's and C's and early termination fee apply. Estimated annual bill €1,534. Verification energia.ie/EAB.
Cirque du Soleil returns to Ireland with a brand new show, OVO, at 3 Arena Dublin from this Wednesday, October 10th to Sunday 14th. Discover a world of insects teeming with amazement, joy and unstoppable energy. Cirque du Soleil, OVO, at 3 Arena Dublin. Tickets from €40.05 on sale now. Additional charges may apply. Official sponsor, Skoda.
Woodies are celebrating 30 years of homemaking with some devilish deals for the season ahead. Like 50% off all Halloween costumes and decorations, so you can go twice as scary. 3 for 2 on all Dulux interior paint, selected laminate flooring, half price, and all flat pack furniture, bar stools, saucepans and baking tins, slashed to half price. Woodies, we're all homemakers. T's and C's and exclusions apply.
In Ireland, especially at this time of year, you have to be prepared for bad weather, and so does your car. So check it into your local garage now for its seasonal service. Then keep making your own checks throughout the winter. Is your antifreeze and screen wash topped up? Do your wipers need replacing? How's your tyre pressure and thread depth? Are all your lights working? Find out how to keep you and your car motoring safely right through to spring at rsa.ie.
Better luck next time, Brian. Funny old game, golf. Now, you got off to a cracking start, by the way.
Here's the question. Did Brian really lose? You see, last week he switched his car insurance to AIG Golfer and got a really great deal.
Pity, because you're putting.
AIG sponsor the GUI and ILGU and have great prices and discounts for
The
golfers.
hazard on the 9th is usually my
So,
water
maybe
due.
some extra bunker lessons from the pro with those savings, Brian. Thanks, AIG.
For quote, visit aig.ie/golf. Terms and conditions apply. AIG Europe Limited is authorised by the Prudential Regulation Authority of the United Kingdom and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland for conduct of business rules.
Entries for the Image Businesswoman of the Year Awards 2018 close on Friday, October the 12th, and we want to hear from you. Stretching across 9 categories, we're looking for entrepreneurs, CEOs and startups. So nominate yourself, your colleague or friend on image.ie. Then join 800 of Ireland's key influencers on Monday, November the 19th at a gala evening as we announce the winners. The Image Businesswoman of the Year Awards. Sponsored by Liffey Valley, Boots, Samsung, BMW, Kuehne Nagel and Irish Life Health. Details on image.ie.
Proudly supported by News Talk.
Bruce Betting, Sportsbook, Casino and now Live Casino. Download the Bruce Betting app to see why for the Premier League, Bruce Betting are giving you more. With price boosts, live in-play betting, cash out and ACCA insurance. Make Bruce Betting your Premier League bookmaker. Bruce Betting, in-store, online and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
In Monday's Irish Independent, don't miss your new look Health and Living magazine for our expert guide to the food and supplements that can help you to manage arthritis and learn how to keep a food diary with Carl Henry. Plus, don't miss our in-depth analysis of how Budget 2019 could directly affect you. And in Monday Sport, Rory O'Connor, David Kelly, Tony Ward, Cian Tracy and Billy Keane on the fallout from the Pro 14 showdown between Leinster and Munster. Only in Monday's Irish Independent. Take a fresh look.
The Cure. The Cure are coming to Dublin. 40 years of hits and more. Malahide Castle, Saturday, June 8th. Tickets $69.50 on sale this Wednesday at 9 a.m. Additional charges may apply. Subject to license. The Cure, live. Tickets on sale this Wednesday.
On 106 to 108 FM and at newstalk.com. This is News Talk.
Good afternoon, I'm Eamon Torsney. One of the victims of the cervical cancer controversy has died.
Emma Vic Mahuna was diagnosed with the disease in 2016. Deirdre Farrelly reports.
37-year-old Emma Vic Mahuna has died at University Hospital in Tralee, County Kerry. The mother of 5 became one of the public faces of the cervical check scandal when it was revealed earlier this year that she had developed a terminal diagnosis. Miss Vic Mahuna was diagnosed in 2016, having previously gotten 2 incorrect smear results. In May, she settled a case in the High Court against the HSE and the US laboratory Quest Diagnostics. Quest admitted to misreading 2 cervical smear slides in 2010 and 2013. The HSE admitted liability for not disclosing the findings of the cervical check audit. The 37-year-old is survived by her 5 children.
Donald Trump is celebrating after his pick for the Supreme Court secured his place, despite weeks of protests. Judge Brett Kavanaugh has been appointed to America's highest court after denying allegations of sexual assault made against him by 3 separate women. Addressing a rally in Kansas, President Trump hit out at Democrats over their opposition to the appointment. He said voters will give their verdict in the coming weeks when the midterm elections take place.
They threw away and threw aside every notion of fairness, of justice, of decency, and of due process. Nobody's seen anything like it. But each of you will have a chance in just 4 weeks to render your verdict on the Democrats' conduct at the ballot box.
And the Finance Minister could use the budget to declare the end of the recession. It comes as speculation continues on what Paschal Donohoe is set to announce when he takes to his feet to deliver his speech on Tuesday. Taoiseach Leo Varadkar has suggested Budget 2019 would fully reverse the cuts made by governments of the past. Kevin Doyle, Group Political Editor with Independent News and Media, says Minister Donohoe will have a key message this week.
And really, I think the narrative that's going to come from this, from the Paschal Donohoe next week, is that they're going to basically say this is the end of the recession. A little bit like Theresa May's conference speech saying that she will bring the end of austerity. Well, Paschal Donohoe is actually going to announce that we are now back to where we were pre-economic crash in terms of social welfare payments in real terms.
That's it for now. We'll have more later.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to Des Kelly Interiors, supplying and fitting your new carpet or wood flooring in time for Christmas. DesKelly.ie.
Dry with some hazy sunshine in the east and south, cloudier in other areas with outbreaks of rain and drizzle, mainly in the northwest and the west of Connacht. Highest temperatures today of 13 to 15 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
You're very welcome back. So we're reviewing the Sunday Papers, given events in Las Vegas. We went over to Niall McGrath. We've gone slightly late starting the papers and we're going to continue them now. We'll hand over to Dave and Gary Breen in a few moments, who have Southampton Chelsea for us. And we'll continue here with Paul Rouse and Timmy McCarthy on Facebook Live and podcast the full chat. So by all means, stay with us if you want to. I noticed Declan Rice was on the front page of a few papers. The Sunday Independent certainly think that his negotiations at the moment will contribute to his decision. David Snade is writing about it as well in the Mail on Sunday. Essentially, Rice is on $3,000 a week and West Ham have offered him $15,000 a week, which in the context of the Premier League doesn't seem like all that much. And it's obvious which way West Ham want him, which way they want him to go. In David Snead's piece, he talks about the emotion that the Rice family, not least his father, felt after Rice's debut in the man of the match performance, and he was down in the tunnel and he got the red carpet treatment. He was down there given all access to the dressing room, tears. When Rice had to go and do an interview for TV, he was like, can I see my dad first? And it was a genuinely big moment for them both. And O'Neill seems to have fostered a good relationship with Rice as well. So these are the areas that we're focusing in on. We're focusing in on the contract. We're focusing in on what it means to his family and his father. What's quite tricky for all of us to do is to get inside the head of 19-year-old Declan Rice at the moment. We're all trying to figure out what's going on. The new agent over the summer has been pointed to as well. And still, we've really not heard from Declan Rice. So there's a lot of speculation, I suppose, at the moment. And that's in the papers today, I think.
So I feel very sorry for Declan Rice. He's 19 years of age. And I think it has to be considered that he may just not know what to do. It seems to me there seems to be a kind of view that it's a cynical exercise, that it's a money-making exercise, and that he's seen the lure of Gareth Southgate's England, working with the nicest man ever in the history of football, and that has turned his head. But I would be much more sympathetic to him. I think the way identity works is that if you're second generation or third generation, the idea that you are one thing or the other is a much too simple way of understanding it. I think he may feel both Irish and English if we just look at identity alone, and it would be strange if he didn't, given the fact that he's third generation living in London. I have no doubt that this meant an enormous amount to his family, and this is a relationship with his father in particular. And David Snape does it brilliantly when he talks about the tunnel after
it's a great piece,
the match, and he talks about how Sean Rice, his father, and Declan Rice met, and they were embracing and crying their eyes out after he'd made his things. And that's an easy thing to imagine. But for Declan Rice, did Declan Rice play for Ireland because he wished to please his father when he was under 17, under 19 and senior? Is that why he was doing it? Is he feeding the father's emotion? Obviously, his father's relationship with his own parents, who came from Douglas and Cork, Jack and Margaret, and the remembrance of that, and he obviously feels closer to Ireland, that step closer. And for Declan Rice has a really tough question to ask himself, and it is, which does he feel more?
Yeah.
And I think it actually comes down to that more than anything else. I think I can't claim to be any sort of an expert on anything, but definitely not when it comes to looking at midfielders in soccer.
Yeah.
But I've only ever seen him play a full game once, and that was against Man United for West Ham 2 weeks ago, and he looked the best player in the field. I know everyone was talking about Mark Noble or whatever afterwards. I thought Declan Rice was magnificent. I thought he ran the game. He looks like someone who could go wherever he wants to go in the game, and I think the idea that there will be a squabble over $3,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 a week will look ridiculous in 5 or 6 years' time. It may be that an agent has come into the picture. It may be that there's money issues in this. It may be that he's under pressure for West Ham. But I would say that what this really comes down to, at its core, is how does Declan Rice feel? And he just may not know.
Okay. Timmy, I'm going to let you in just a second. Yep. There's no point you starting and then me interrupting you, getting your take on things. Before we go over to our first live game of the afternoon, I should give you a chance to enter our competition today. All this week we've teamed up with Virgin Media Sport, the new home of European football in Ireland, and it's a brilliant prize. Daily winner gets a €50 one-for-all voucher and then goes into the end of week draw, which is a trip for two to go and see Liverpool-Napoli in the Champions League Tuesday the 11th of December, and €200 spending money. To be in with a chance of winning, just identify our Champions League mystery voice who's not loving his Shakespeare studies at the moment.
Romeo he's the most emotional out of...
Text your name and answer 53106, and if you do win, you obviously must be able to travel over to Dublin on the Tuesday morning and return on Wednesday. And again, that's with thanks to Virgin Media Sport, with more than 400 UEFA Champions League, Europa League and Nations League games live this season. Virgin Media Sport is exclusive to all Virgin Media TV customers who can download the TV Anywhere app and stream all the action whenever and wherever they like. So we will continue the Sunday paper review here with Timmy McCarthy and Paul Rouse on Facebook Live, and podcast the full chat as well. But Dave McIntyre, Premier League action is very much upon us. We've gone over to Dave McIntyre. We're continuing here on Facebook Live. We've got Paul Rouse and Timmy McCarthy with us here in studio. So, we heard Paul very eloquently get into the nuances of identity and what might be going on in Declan Rice's head. You've played for your country. A more straightforward decision, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I would have, I suppose, a very different view than Paul in this. And I think if you turn the pages and go to Kevin Kilbane's view on the Declan Rice, I think there's a great line: Rice shouldn't be stringing us along. So that's Kevin Kilbane's view on it on the next page. I think that, he's
had a zero tolerance policy all along, I should say, Kevin.
Yeah, and because he has similarities to the Declan Rice environment, in the sense, like, for me, as you say, Joe, was straightforward. I'm from Cork. Although at one stage I was actually asked to play by Great Britain in the World Student Games many years ago, and my parents said under no circumstances you play for Great Britain in the World Student Games. So in a different way, parents can definitely influence your decision.
And to be fair, Kev grew up in an Irish household. I was as Irish as could be. There's pictures of him in an Irish jersey as a 12, 13-year-old. He supported Ireland. He was offered the chance to play with the under-15 English team and had to tell Sam Allardyce, I'm not, he was his club manager at the time, absolutely no chance. I do wonder, Rice, his father and wanting to...
Yeah, but I think that if we ignore his father for a second, and I get your point about the family and who wants to play for Ireland. So I get that question mark that's hanging around. but he's played for Ireland at underage. He's played for Ireland right through, and he's played for Ireland at senior level. So he has made, like, it's different if he had never played for Ireland. I mean, he played at senior level, and it's just the rules of the FIFA say if you don't play competitive, you're not then playing for Ireland. But he did play for Ireland, and he kissed the crest, you know, if we go back to this, like, and he showed on the nights he played for Ireland, a passion from this point of view. The contract, I think, is a contractual issue. And, you know, I think West Ham won't pay Declan Rice any more money if he plays for England. They'll pay him as less money as they can for as long as they can, rather than as much as they in that situation. But I do believe that he made a choice. And what disappoints me about it now is that it's like the never-ending saga, right? He's 19 years of age. He's a professional. So we need to be very clear. He's a professional player with an agent. He needs to make the decision. But in my mind, he has made the decision. And I think Martin O'Neill's comment about you might get 50 caps with us, you definitely won't get 50 with England in David Snyde's piece is fascinating, because we don't know where Declan Rice's career is going to go. And we've seen many 19-year-olds, Paul, who have excited us and have turned out to be average players, and we've seen less 19-year-olds who didn't excite us and have turned out to be fantastic players. So I wish Declan Rice the best with his career. I would love him to play for Ireland. I think that as a former international, playing for your country, and, you know, in this case, he made a choice to play for Ireland. And it's just his head has got turned a little bit about the fact that Southgate might be interested in him, and England might be interested in him in that sense, and that has made him stall the decision. It's now, I agree with Kevin Kilbane, it's time to stop stringing the journey along. Make your decision. You're an adult. You're a young adult, but you're an adult. You're paid as an adult. Get on with it. Make the decision. And if it's for Ireland, fantastic. If it's for England, we wish you...
Go on, bring yourself to say it. The best.
The best. We wish you the best.
Very magnanimous of you.
So I agree with some of that.
Okay.
And I admire I just admire Kevin Kilbane, full stop. I love listening to him on the radio. I loved watching him play, and he played with absolute heart for Ireland. And it's one thing, it's okay to say it's a similar situation, but it's not the same. And no two people are the same in how they experience that idea. And Kevin Kilbane is, you know, Mayo GA, and he's all of these things that
Can I just say, but Declan Rice played for Ireland. He made a choice to play for Ireland.
No, okay.
We're forgetting that. See, what we're learning is the FIFA rule of saying you must play competitive. But he made a choice to play for Ireland now, Paul.
But we shouldn't be... We shouldn't be blind about what happens here. International sport is made up of people who shift allegiance routinely. We have players who play for us who have played underage, but in soccer, in rugby, in athletics, in rowing, who have competed underage for other countries. And we welcome them in. And identity and an international sport is a really, really complex area. And we have made, repeatedly, compromises on who we put into a green jersey or who can wear a green badge. We allow people to make changes which benefit us, and we accept them with open arms. Yep. And I just would be careful. I'd be really slow to condemn somebody who at 19, at 19 years of age, I'd struggle to make my breakfast. Like, let alone...
But you weren't a paid professional at 19 years of age.
But I don't think that matters. I think in that situation...
I also think that's true, and not true. Because I found myself on radio a few weeks back going, sure, at 19 I didn't know anything. But then I thought about it later that night and I said, well, that's disingenuous. At 19 I did know what's what. Like, at 19 you could make your breakfast. Yeah. I'm sure you were very smart.
Yeah, no, I was obviously...
You know what I mean?
There was a silly way of putting it. But you know, but this is a complex thing.
But at 19... I mean, give yourself a bit of credit, because we all dishonestly say, oh, at 19 I was an idiot. But I think back, like, at 19 I wasn't an idiot, really. Like, I kind of knew who I was and what I was about and where I wanted to go.
But that's why you win these broadcasting awards.
Stop now.
That's a different...
You're a professor of history.
That's a different scenario. I mean, you operate on a higher plane than the rest of us.
He must have, on many occasions, as he flew from London to Dublin to play for Ireland underage and back again, in those quiet moments on the plane, have thought, how do I feel about this? Well, I could probably make the England under-17s team.
This is where I come back to his dad. And
I'm just using that point to say he has thought about, this has not just been sprung on him in the last kind of few months. You know,
No,
like
but
he's
a
had
door
years
has
to think
opened,
about it.
something that he didn't think about previously. Maybe it's as simple that he actually didn't think about this previously.
Yeah.
He just accepted it. He went into the way of this. He only considered himself, because of the nature, how he knew how much it meant to his dad, the emotion that was felt about it.
Oh, I can see that, and the picture that David Snape paints in the tunnel, I can see the emotional
fantastic,
pressure,
right?
like
It's
what it would
fantastic.
have done for his family.
And
so
he's also blossomed. Sorry for cutting across.
Yeah, go on.
He has also blossomed as a player. And nobody was talking about Declan Rice when he was 16, 17 and 18 as being this kind of golden child who was going to transform Irish soccer. So he is someone who's come on the radar of these things. And he's made it it's on the strength of a full season in the Premier League. He comes, this guy who's going up, who's making a name for himself. And he's brought up in England.
Yeah.
All of his friends are English.
Yeah.
He has friends who have played for England, have captained England.
Yeah.
He talks about his great friendship, and this would worry me, with John Terry, and how he looks at John Terry as a role model, which in fairness is not the greatest choice, with all apologies to a Chelsea fan beside me here.
Paul, that's really going a step too far now.
But I think I just cut him a bit of slack. And why should he?
No, I should say, I am entirely in agreement with you. Like, I think he feels both English and Irish. I think underage it was very easy to go and play for Ireland and still feel a bit English and have a big allegiance to Ireland and the home of his father and his grandparents. I think his father would have loved it, and I think it was a fantastic thing for him. And I think he still also felt English. I think he supported England at the Euros and also represented Ireland at under 21 level, and it's come to a head now. And I think ultimately, when he boils it down, he's probably realising, well, you know, I do feel a bit more English than Irish, and it seems they're interested in me as well, and maybe the time has come to actually commit to England. I think that's where he is. And I should just say, I think that is totally fine. I don't think he has been even a tiny bit disingenuous. Like, I think that journey is perfectly natural, normal, acceptable. I think he didn't disrespect the Irish jersey when he kissed the badge, even if he goes on to play with England. I think he felt those things about Ireland. I think he feels a bit more maybe about England for all the reasons Paul's talked about. The only slight issue I would have is just in the last month or two, it's become a little bit strung out and undignified, and maybe you just need to bite the bullet and choose. But when he chooses England, and I do think it's a when, I don't feel shortchanged at all. I think it's a complicated area and fair enough.
Okay, I would agree with both of you in the fact that, you know, he's born in England, okay, so and the English side and the Irish side, I get all that. I fully get all that. And I think that his journey up to now in underage is that, you know, is driven by the fact that it can be his parents and his grandparents and that side of the story, which is important in our heritage. I mean, as a historian, that's an important part of our heritage. I slightly make a change, though, is that once you turn and become a senior player, that's where I'm saying he elected. He could have said no at that point in time. And I think it was David Gold, the West Ham owner, was the first guy that threw his tuppence halfpenny and says, you know, he should be playing for England. He's English in that sense. And from that moment on, now Rice still played a few games for Ireland after that point in time. The new agent came in, which is a factor because, you know, and not his age. You have an agent in your ear saying, I can get you more money. You know, if you're playing for England, you're worth more market value than you are for Ireland. And that's natural in that sense, particularly the fact you're playing in that country. But I do believe he made a decision. And so my issue is, if he decides for England, okay, and you're saying Joe's more likely, as I say, I wish him the best of luck, okay? He'll be a loss, he'll be one at a loss. But for me, I suppose, where my heart will be very much on my sleeve in this, he played for Ireland at senior level. He had made that choice. And he's now taking a cop-out, which the system allows him to go back. If he had said, before he played for Ireland at senior level, guys, I haven't decided. I need to take my time. I've loved playing at underage. Then, you know, but I want to make the right choice.
The Jack Grealish way.
I'd have said, that's fair enough. But what he did was, Paul, he played for Ireland, and because he was international then, okay, that helped him in his career, and that's my criticism of him. He made a choice, and now he's taking a cop-out to turn around.
Okay, so I can't disagree with the fact, I accept the logic of that, and it seems to me to be a very reasonable point, right? The fact that he played senior for Ireland, then that should be the dividing line, ideally. And in fairness, the rules are ridiculous. But he knew in doing that he wasn't making the forever decision. So now he's facing the forever decision, and I think that's where the problem has come from. Now, it's very easy, I think, and you're not doing this, obviously, but it's very easy for people to shout treason, traitor, he's letting us down. And that's not what this is. And in fairness, most people, I think, are sensible about this. He comes across as a very capable, decent bloke. I just think he's not sure. And in the ideal world, once he'd played senior, that was it. I agree with that. But the rules say otherwise. And where I disagree with you, Joe, and where I disagree with Kevin as well, is that so what if it takes him another year to make a decision? So what if it takes him another 2 years to make a decision? If he doesn't know, he doesn't know.
I wish he'd come out and say, do you know what, I'm parking this until the end of the season. It's just
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. I don't want him taking time, but I just wish he'd come out and put an end to this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, just one final point I would say.
Yeah,
well, I would
disagree
on giving him a year or two in that sense, right?
This is the politest argument in the history of the world.
I would disagree in the fact that I would say give him a year or two, right? He's in a situation, right, where, Martin O'Neill is obviously close to the family, and the article calls that out very clearly.
Yeah.
But it's a disruption now. It's a disruption to the Irish football programme. It's now the discussion point at every situation. So, even if he wants to play for England or wants to play for Ireland, right, okay, I think that he should just be man enough at 19 years of age. I do agree that Paul probably did cook breakfast badly maybe at 19, but he should be man enough at 19 to make the decision. For me, he made it already. The rules allow him a cop-out. But now the fact he has another chance to make a decision yet again, make the decision and get on with it. And then the best luck to him wherever he goes.
Very quickly.
I think he might play for Ireland. I'm routinely wrong in predictions.
Good.
But I think he might play for Ireland.
Martin O'Neill hasn't given up hope, certainly. He seems quite confident that he's in a good relationship with the father and this isn't done. And even on the press conference day, which was Thursday, when it looked like the story was breaking that papers had been prepared by the FA, and this was put to O'Neill, he said, "Oh, I'd be surprised. So I think O'Neill's feeling is this is still in the air, touch. But I don't know. A story to put everything into perspective, I suppose, bar the Sean Cox piece. But we've talked about McGregor Khabib. We've talked about Declan Rice's future. I guess the Ronaldo story is very serious as well. This is actually a heavy news round in some respects. So Mike Ross has a new book out called Dark Arts, his new autobiography, and it's serialised on page 92 and 93 of the Mail on Sunday. I think people will be aware at this stage that Mike Ross lost his brother Andrew to suicide. And there's a section on it on page 93, which is almost too upsetting to kind of talk about out loud. We will in some respects, and we won't talk about the method of suicide because we're certainly advised against doing that on the radio. It's not really the done thing. But his brother Andrew committed suicide when he was in his late teens, and Ross is recounting it here in his book, and it's just beyond heartbreaking. I mean, I don't know how the family come back from it. In fact, Ross at one point says it did completely break the family, and they did have to start again completely. There was no. It destroyed the family, he says, and we had to start again. There was no kind of coming to terms with it as such.
I think it's heartbreaking. I mean, I think this, this piece from the book is a heartbreaking piece, and it's a very difficult situation for any family involved in that. What I thought was really exceptionally sad about it, though, was near the end of the column, he said, the strangest thing about that morning was I spent time with my mum and Andrew, and she was holding him tightly, and I went to the room of which he shared with his brother, and I changed my working clothes. There was milking to be done. And I just trying to visualise, the scene as, of that really tragic morning. And yet he had to do what was expected, which was to get into the working clothes and go around the farm, and because he said that's what had to be done. And, and I just thought to myself, there's a sort of a summary of life at its most raw, where you have this really tragic event where the son has unfortunately taken his own life, and yet the other family members have to keep going in the most difficult circumstances.
I absolutely agree. That was the piece of that article that is just, it's so raw. And if you think of it, he was 17 years of age. He'd been called out of school. His brother Andrew had been in the same class as him in school. Yeah. They had shared not just a bedroom, but a bed in that bedroom for all his kind of conscious life. And he comes home, and his brother was dead, and he, as you say, he had to go milking because there was someone out there who needed help. And all the while, those 2 hours when he's out milking the cows, the guarded cars are still parked outside their house, and there are neighbours and friends and people arriving, and he's changed out of his school uniform into his farm clothes to go out and work. And it's an amazing extract. It's a very, very upsetting thing to read, and it's in, like, the book is called Dark Arts, and it's a two-parter. The extract is a two-parter. So the first part is about the Heineken Cup final where Leinster played Northampton, and the extract I've taken is from the half-time in that match when Leinster were a long way down, 16 points down or whatever it was, and Ross is under huge pressure.
They were being killed in the scrum,
from the first half.
Yeah.
And he talks about that and what he felt like then and how he'd approached it, and it's a very open admission of the fragility of his career at that point. So you have that beside this other story which is too grim to imagine, and it just looks a very impressive book.
It does, yeah. And the extraordinary thing in the extract about his brother Andrew, who was 16 at the time, Ross was 17, is one of the things which really was on Mike Ross's mind for a long time. Is there was no letter, there was no word, there's no explanation. Yes. Must be one of the horrors of any family who get hit with this, and it comes out of the blue like that. And then it turned out years later there was a letter which his mother didn't feel the family could cope with at that stage or deal with, and it's years later that he reads it. And yeah, I mean, it's just
I thought on that point, Joe,
it's going to be a must-read book by the look of things.
Yeah, I thought on that point about the letter, I just thought to myself, it was the mom's strength, like she had decided for the family, I'm going to take all this on my shoulders, and I'm going to, deal with it in that way. I think the last line on that piece is actually, Andrew reminded us, about the fact that there's still some holes in the wall. There's a visible sign of Andrew remaining with them, and I think when you read the sporting part of his journey, because Mike Ross had a tough sporting journey with a lot of success, but came under pressure frequently in the sense of question marks about him, and what I found when you read about his brother Andrew, God rest his soul, was there was so much going on in Mike Ross's life that we would never be aware of, to deal with all those things, and yet to become a professional sports person and reach the pinnacle of his career takes great credit, and I think sometimes we forget the humanity of professional sports people or sports people who reach the highest level. They have a life outside it.
Yeah, there's a hinterland there, basically.
And I just think today, I think when you read, this piece, I think it actually captures, for me, it captured the sporting side of it and the challenge, which, as a former sports person and coach, I understand what it's like to be in a situation where it ain't going well for you, and you've got to sort it out as a player or as a coach. But on the other hand, the humanity of what's going on in your world and what memories you have. And I just think that this is a book that's definitely well worth reading because it captures both of those pieces for me.
Okay. Page 92 and 93 of the Mail then. You both actually came in, I said, was there any interviews? Well, one thing is that nobody was that keen to talk about the rules changes proposed in the GAA, although there are a few different pieces about them. But Owen Murphy's interview in the Sunday Independent, you both liked?
Yeah, very quickly about the rules. There is no point in talking about something that hasn't been trialled. Trial it and then talk about it. Presumably the decisions they've made are evidence-based, so they've made them for a reason. Everybody knows something has to be tried, so let's try these and see how they work, and then move.
Can I just say one thing on the rules though? 2 yellow cards and you get to the sin bin. I think it's an Irishman's answer.
Okay. I just thought we're not going to get lured into this.
I just thought to myself,
my championship structure's next if we keep going.
No, let's not do that to ourselves.
The Owen Murphy piece, it's with Dermot Crowe in the Sunday Independent, and I kind of don't really read interviews with sports people anymore, broadly speaking, certainly with a lot of GA people, well, other people as well, because they seem to me to be, they're kind of mundane, formulaic, and this is a great piece. And it's not a great piece because there's any massive revelations in it. There's no big drama, there's no extraordinary story. He just talks openly, he talks warmly, and it's clear that he absolutely loves what he's doing. And he's got a great turn of phrase in how he speaks, and it leads to a great interview. And and it works on a whole load of different levels. It works on the level, first of all, of a man who's absolutely at the top of his game. I mean, he is a brilliant, brilliant goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And he gives a very interesting dissection of other goalkeepers. And so, for example, he talks about Nicky Quaid's save against Cork and on Seamus Harnedy and how he used his feet.
I've forgotten that, Paul.
Of course I have. Yeah. So he talks about that, and he talks brilliantly then about his introduction to the Kilkenny team, and he ultimately took David Herrity's place as a Kilkenny goalie. And he talks about how Herrity could not have done more to help him when he comes on, and it's a very warm and fulsome tribute. But he also talks about his family, his club, the wider scene in Kilkenny, and it's just a great read. And it's the kind of thing where there's a bit in it that I think that anybody who's starting off or who's playing sport talks about how they respond when they do something wrong. He dropped the ball against Clare in the net earlier in the year, and he says I couldn't wait for the next ball to come in, because it was like, right, that's gone. It's not going to happen again, and I couldn't wait for the ball to come in so I can get my hands on it. And it's that whole thing of how you come back from adversity. So it's just a lovely interview.
Yeah, as Paul says to me, there's no great controversy. There's no headlines. It just bumps along really nicely.
Yeah, I thought there was a very important line. This for me, it was really a line that separated this from many other interviews I've read over the period. It says, "I'm a Glenmore man playing for Kilkenny." And that's the first time I've ever seen an inter-county hurler be as specific with the fact that I'm a Glenmore man first, not Kilkenny. I read that line and said, "Whoa, that's a real big point." And that he's calling out the importance for him. He's a clubman who happens to play for Kilkenny, and that's where when you read practically every other article over the years, it's all about the inter-county, and the club gets a mention, and But I just thought this line, which says basically it says, "I'm a Glenmore person hurling for Kilkenny. That will always be the way." I just thought it was powerful. That separates it now. Then the other stuff about his honesty and looking at our goalkeepers, fascinating. But I just thought to myself, "Whoa, it's very rare you hear that honesty and that rawness." There's another line I got a great kick out of, which is really honesty. There were some savage men in Glenmore. It just is a great line, because sometimes when you read articles, and I think even previously at one point in time, Paul, when I interviewed at times, something would say, you look back and say, was that all about what I really said, or did that capture me? This captures him. That's the one I think this captures him in the sense of his family, his passion for his club and from his parish, and then his pride in the club. And then obviously in Kilkenny, and I just thought to myself, I thought Dermot Cody did a brilliant job in it, but I just love the fact that, he's a savage man from Glenmore who plays hurling.
He's given lots of space to breathe as well, because you could, as an editor, think, wow, what's kind of in this in some respects, where's the big wow moment? And also, as with but most high-profile hurling players, I get to see what he looks like.
Yes.
I was like, who's this lad? And there he is. And
Dermot Crowe is a great writer. He's a most underrated journalist. Week after week, he gets something new and fresh into the Sunday Independent sports section. And Timmy's absolutely right about that idea of Glenmore. And what you see in this article, if there is something that is different apart from that in the article, is you actually get to see how tradition works. So he talks about in 2000, when he was a boy, he was 10 at that stage, Willie O'Connor, who was his hero. And anyone who saw Willie O'Connor hurl can never ever forget it. But Willie O'Connor, the homecoming, Willie O'Connor had captained Kilkenny to win the All-Ireland in 2000. They bring the cup back down to Glenmore. And he says, the homecoming was on the Tuesday night. There wasn't even a bus. It was a tractor and trailer down into the village, bonfires blazing, a massive party in the village. And those boys then had the Liam McCarthy brought to their school the next day, the boys and girls from Glenmore, and how that's how it works. And the expectation of how that works in a successful county is that it's not now that you want to follow the footsteps of the local player in making the county team. It's to follow the footsteps, make the local team, and bring back.
Yes.
That's the level.
They're in tandem.
That's the level of attainment that's sought after. It's not just enough to make it.
As an aside, Timmy, have you stopped reading sports interviews with individuals? Do you find them a bit tedious and boring like Paul?
Yeah, I find them less honest. See, I love honesty. I just think honesty, and whatever your opinion is, just be honest in that sense. So I find that, you know, people, sports players and people are now cliched comments there, you know. That's why I love your program, actually, in the sense of there's a great honesty because people have space. What I like about you know,
time.
If you have time, you can, as a good presenter, suck things out of people and get them to be more honest. I would just love people to be more honest.
We get plenty of people lying in here as well, don't worry.
I've no doubt to that. Well, you've plenty of people who not necessarily lying, who media trained and just give them
one
media
game
answer.
at a time, Timmy. That's
you know?
the key.
But time
That's a
is
good
the key.
one for you. One game at a time.
Yeah. So I think the key for me in that is that. So when I do read stuff, I find myself, you know, tell me the real things. Tell me the stuff that really, as a former player, you know, like. Why did I play? Did I play for my club? Did I play for myself? And you know, and obviously, you know, like when the game finished, first thing went through my mind was, did we win? The next thing went through my mind, how did I play? Like, you know, that was as quickly as did we win, okay? And then how did I contribute to the win or loss? You don't get that now from people. You get like, oh, it's all about, and all about the team. And the final thing about the lack of honesty from reporters. When people get man of the match awards, it's always been something I've always smiled at, okay? So when I got man of the match in my playing career, in any sport I played, basketball, soccer or GA, I loved it, okay? And I got man of the match because I was the best player, in somebody's opinion, at man of the match. I didn't say I'm getting this on behalf of the team, because it wasn't on behalf of the team. It came home to my mom's house or my wife's house, and it was in my house. And I just find, like, and when I say that, I say, I'm thrilled to get it. The people interviewed got a great honesty in it.
Yeah.
Now we say, well, I'm accepting this on behalf of the team. And half the team were taken off because they were playing rubbish. And I'm still accepting the award. So even I'm a great believer in team, Joe, because as a coach, I believe the team is what it's about. But when there are individual awards, just have the honesty to say, I love getting this award.
Was that an awkward moment, which is becoming the norm in rugby now, where they try and give them a medal if they get man of the match? Last night, Ross Byrne, on this career-defining night for him, wrestled. I mean, your man had another go, and I'm putting this over your neck. He's like, you're not, and he yanked it down. And you know,
I saw that.
Sorry.
I think there's another one in interviews now which always makes me laugh, and it's not about the team, it's about the squad, and it's about all the lads who didn't make the 26 as well. Now, nobody can tell me that not being on the field is a pain. And I was at the All-Ireland football final this year, and I had great seats, straight up, I had great seats in the Hogan, just across from where the Dublin bench was. And the reaction of those players who didn't get on the field, and the reaction of those who were on the wider hinterland of the panel, including multiple All-Ireland winners, they didn't have the level of enjoyment or appreciation out of it as the Jack McCarthy or the... How could they?
And it's a physiological thing. They don't have the cocktail of adrenaline and all the other things running through their system as well. They're not a part of it. You need to sweat a little bit.
You have to. It doesn't matter what you've done all year, really, when it comes down to it. You have to be on that pitch at the end.
Give me the final instead of the other 10 games beforehand.
Yeah,
completely. You just want the final.
Yep. And I think there's a great development of sport about the importance of, you know, of squads and backroom teams and all that, and that's critical in any sport. But as a player, just if you break it down, as a player, you want to play, and you, like, you know, again, you know, because I'd be very honest. So you're playing a match play golf against your friend in the local club. You hope he hits a bad shot. Now, I know you're not supposed to say those things, but you want to win the match. And people come and say, no, I hoped he played his best, and I play my best, and I'll accept the result. Well, I'm just telling you, I want to win. I want to win. And if you happen to play bad, Joe, that makes my winning easier. I'll take that. And as a player, in a sporting sense, I've always felt, you know, I want to play well. I want my team to win, and I want to play well. And I want to be on the field, the court or the field, as long as possible. So I was fortunate in my career to be on the court most of the time. And if I was taken off, I wasn't happy coming off, because in basketball you can go back on and off. For you to go on, Paul, I wasn't happy. And I was hoping that I get back on as quickly as possible. So I just think playing is about, as you say, the adrenaline, feeling the sweat, and feeling the buzz of you're contributing. You know, rather than getting a medal saying, well, you know, I'm an All-Ireland winning medal holder. How many games did you play? Didn't really play, no, but I was in the squad, you know.
Quite tough now for your future competitors at golf to tee off, knowing you have a voodoo doll in your pocket and you're
going to hook them.
You're bristling, hating them as they hit the shot. No, it's true, and I think we probably are at a point now where when someone does a decent interview, either on radio or on print, and you read the first few words or you get the first few minutes and you realise they're being honest, there's an element of, oh, great. Yes. You know, it's like we're actually going to do this for real here, as opposed to the other 80%, 90%? It's probably that high at this stage, isn't it?
I think so. I think it's the media training and the innate cautions. And there is also a thing where some people don't want to reveal anything.
Which is totally fair enough. Privacy is a big thing, yeah.
But my view on that is then don't do an interview.
Yeah, well, one last one then, I guess, to finish on. I mean, ties in with the rugby, and I know as a Munster man you weren't thrilled with what you saw last night. Timmy, Easton Assay was sat down with the Business Post in their Post Plus section. There's also, by the way, a big Champions Cup preview magazine in the Business Post this week, but Easton Assay was sat down and talked about retirement second time around. I think it's pretty good, some interesting bits and bobs in it.
I was fascinated by it. As somebody who has retired from sport, not once only, because I believe in you retire, so I think it's a big decision that you should make and go, but he retired and came back. I think what it says is, you're relevant today and you're irrelevant tomorrow.
Instantly.
And that's, for me when I retired, I can remember the year I retired, and the basketball was filmed at the time by RT for the weekend. So this year we're in the Neptune Stadium with 5,000 or 6,000 people at the game, and you're the star or one of the stars of this show. And the next year I get one of the last tickets to get in, and I'm in the cheapest of the cheapest seats in the place with my wife, okay? And I'm walking in and nobody wants to talk to me, or nobody's interested in me. And for about 3 or 4 seconds when the teams came on at the very start, when they ran on, my emotions, oh my God, did I make the right decision? And as soon as that surge of emotion passed, I believe I had made the right decision. But it was very clear, I'm now irrelevant. I'm no longer relevant. The following year RT brought me in, and then you're relevant a bit in a different sphere from that point of view. But as a player, what I found is, the minute you say you're finished, with your teammates, with the supporters, with the media, you're yesterday's man. And that's what he's feeling, and he makes a great line, I think, which says, don't feel the sport owes you anything. It's important to believe that. Because if you believe the sport owes you something, after putting your body on the line for 15 years, get real. For me, for people who played sport, okay, we got a great run out of it. It was fantastic. But when you're gone, you're gone.
He says the biggest change immediately is not having a schedule. And you think it's great, I don't have a schedule. I can wake up, do whatever I like, but you feel very lonely very quickly. Again, I mean, these themes come up time and time again. The loneliness, you lose suddenly your WhatsApp group, all your friends instantly. You don't have your schedule, and feeling like the game owes you something. He says he wasn't able to watch Leinster after his initial retirement. And he read a Gordon Darcy column, which had talked about going to see a game shortly after Darcy's on retirement, and Darcy had to leave at half-time. He said, I could relate to that the first time around, but this time around, I'm much more at peace with it. He knew his body was crumbling.
But I don't think it leaves you, because I think you can still go to games and you can still really wish you were playing. I know even on a very local level, in the Offaly Senior Football Championship last week, Tullamore were playing Road in the county semi-final. I ended up helping my brother John, who was training Tullamore. Road won by a couple of points. Great game of football, actually. And nothing would have pleased me more than to be able to play in that match.
Yeah.
And this is like 16 years on.
It's something we never talk about too often, but I think bog standard amateurs really, really miss it too.
Thanks, Joe.
And excellent players like you. In the context of Easton Assay, we are bog standard amateurs.
Oh, 100%.
But really miss it as well.
100%. And this is the thing. It's a part of everything that defines what you do. This thing, like if you play just club level in the GAA. The amount of commitment that's required for that, the amount of commitment if you're playing Leinster League soccer, if you do fencing, if you're part of a fencing club who does, and so on across all the sports, if it's something that has been an important part of your life, both physically and mentally, as well as structurally, for so long, to walk away from that and to have that taken from you, it has a huge impact.
And you feel preposterous as an amateur to even say, God, I'm really missing it.
When I finished playing senior football for Tullamore, I missed it incredibly badly. And there were other players just walk away and just didn't turn the page and move on. But I think if you have a certain level of obsessiveness in your personality, or you're really given to it, I think you end up, missing it and not really. There'll always be something just missing from that.
Yeah. For me, I retired at 29, so we just won the league, and I was captain of my country, so I was, some people say, at the peak of my career, and I had a young family. I wanted to spend time with my family, so I walked away. So I made the decision. I was always a believer. If you make a decision of this magnitude, and at that stage, basketball was a very big sport in this country, and I was traveling the world a lot. You need to make sure it's the right decision. And I walked away, and I never played again. I never played basketball at any other level other than 2 charity games that I played, for charity. But I always missed playing. And now I would go to games. I'd go to games and watch games and enjoy the game for what it is. But I always missed playing. But I was very comfortable with the fact I decided to walk away. But you can't replicate the fun of playing, whatever level you're at, whether it is, professional rugby, whether it is semi-professional basketball, whether it is GA inter-county, whatever, or whether it is amateur in any sport. You can't replicate the buzz of playing. So I missed it. But I went on to coaching and do other things in that sense. It never replicated the playing. The playing was one thing. But I think what Naseh was talking about was this sheer switch from the fact, in my words, you're relevant to irrelevant. And it's just like you're a part of it, and everyone wants to be with you, and all of a sudden you're actually yesterday's man. And I think that's the hardest thing, particularly for professional sports people who have gone through a professional career. Many of them with little education, obviously some of them with a lot of education, and to find a world outside that wants to treat you as, you're just the run-of-the-mill guy. And I think that's, is going to be a big challenge for a lot of sports people. But you can't be playing, irrespective of whether you're clear when you decide to go or whether you're forced to go because you just get too old to do it,
Interestingly, he's gone to work with Empire Wealth now, an advisory firm. One of his pieces of homework was to watch The Big Short movie, where he was struck by the greed at the highest level. So he's on a steep learning curve there. And he talks about a number of friends who are battling CTE. And it prompts the question, would he let his children play rugby? I'd have massive reservations, I would. Do I want to see my girls playing rugby? Probably not. But that's what my parent had on. If I had a son, I think I'd let him play rugby. So I don't know what that's saying of me. It's a pretty honest answer.
Yeah, but then he says, when he's asked if he's holding that son in his arms, would you let him play? And he says no. So it's a really tricky one. It's a really tricky one for rugby. And again, there's no need here to rehearse the concussion argument, but it is still an issue. I mean, it seems to me that where the game is going is that the tackle height is just going to drop and drop and drop.
I know, but I think there's a study out that as often as anything, it's the tackler and not the person carrying the ball who gets the brunt of it. I mean, and we've seen it so many times. Tackler goes in, head's on the wrong side, and that kneecap comes at you. Your kneecap doesn't get CTE, but the head does. So I don't know. It's got a real problem long term. I don't know if I haven't heard a good solution put forward by anyone.
No, and that's the problem. And you come down to class actions, just as you saw with American footballers. Yeah. And I think if I was involved in rugby union, I would have a sinking fund for the claims that I'm going to be hit with.
We're pretty much done. Thank you both so much for coming in. It was a pleasure. We've podcasted the whole thing. We're signing off from Facebook Live. Timmy McCarthy, thank you. Real pleasure to have you in. Come back and do the papers anytime you want.
Okay, look forward to that.
Yeah,
thank
you.
You.
Great to. And Paul Rouse, pleasure as always.
Thanks.
And the book again?
The Hurlers.
The Hurlers. On sale now and highly recommended. And you can hear Paul's interview. He was in with Ger a couple of weeks ago. You can podcast that as well. So we're signing off from Facebook Live. Good luck.
Thanks a million. That was a pleasure.